Hello, welcome back to my channel. As always, you can call me Lore, and while I don't always have trouble connecting with my characters, when I do, it's crippling.
We're gonna talk about things and maybe make some things too.
So recently I attended the Haunted of Grey Manor, a LARP by Reverie Studios, in which characters are actually written for us. It's pretty common in these larger blockbuster style LARPs for there to be a writing team that actually develops the character with the player. The idea behind this is to make sure there's a narrative cohesion between character to character at the event. I have never had a character written for me, so this was a very, very new and interesting experience. Initially, I was very surprised at the amount of similarities between myself and the character, especially without knowing the writer at all. And I read it, I was just like, I feel like you wrote me on paper playing up a single insecurity without knowing me, and I'm not sure how you did that. I'm a little worried. Originally I thought, oh, well, this will be fine, it'll be great. It's pretty much me, or it's very, very, very similar to me, so it'll be easy to play. However, I found out very quickly that I was having a lot of trouble actually understanding this character. The biggest problem was I didn't really know where I ended and the character began. This doesn't seem like an issue initially, but in LARP there's a term called bleed. So bleed is when you as the player's emotions, actions, or biases affects your character's emotions, actions, or biases, or vice versa. I wouldn't say that bleed is necessarily good nor bad. It's not black and white like that, but there is positive and negative bleed. An example of positive bleed would be like if you had an experience as a character and were able to apply that in your everyday life, and it helps you to better understand that experience because you've actually lived it in a role-playing sense. Or there's negative bleed, like say you played a rageful character and now we're walking around in your everyday life ready to fight everyone. It really depends on how it affects your everyday life or role-playing. In the case of my most recent LARP character, Cass, I found that we both have a tendency to really engross ourselves in our work to the point of overworking. Now, Cass does so to atone for a blameless event that happened in their childhood that they absolutely blame themselves for, but thinking ahead to after the event, I didn't really want to take home survivor's guilt or crippling sadness for a loss that never happened. So, I thought that it was really, really important to find that separation between that character and myself. Also, it makes them more unique. So I thought for today we could talk about how I got through this character block. Now, I'm certainly no expert, I'll never pretend to be, but I felt like if any of my process could help anybody else out there potentially suffering from the same thing, why not put my process on the internet for the entire world to critique and view? A lot of these steps that I'm about to mention are actually tools that I use when making my own characters, LARP or D&D from scratch. So I guess I figured that they would help me understand a pre-existing character. Step number 1, start a Pinterest board. If you cannot fathom where to start, I always start with the Pinterest board. And in this case, I started with the Pinterest aesthetic board. So after memorizing and internalizing my character sheet, pretty much scanning it 50 times, I headed over to Pinterest and I scrolled and I scrolled. And anytime I saw anything or felt anything that seemed like it resonated with my character, I pinned it. It didn't really matter if I knew why at this point, so it could be completely based on vibes, it could be based on shapes, it could be based on colors, it could be a back alley where someone died once and it just felt right, I don't know. But pin it, and we'll talk about why later. If it helps you to narrow down the search, one thing that I did is while looking at her character sheet, I went through and I identified a singular theme that I could then use as a search term on Pinterest. While looking through Cass's character sheet, one thing that I found was she kind of had this vintage academic vibe in my head. And so I searched pretty much that, vintage academic, and that's where I started my search. This will send you down a rabbit hole, but follow it. Follow it, embrace the primordial chaos vibe. So over time, as you pin more and more things, you'll probably start to see a trend or a pattern on the board.
Next, you can analyze the board. So maybe you pinned a landscape or a setting. Think, how does this setting relate to your character? How does it relate to their backstory? Where does it fit in their kind of life timeline? Were they there as a child? Were they there growing up? Think about it. Or say that you pinned or you realize a trend in the style of clothing that you're pinning for this character. Think about what that would feel like to wear. Is it free flowing or is it tight and restrictive? How would it affect the movement of your character? If you're having trouble visualizing that, think about people or characters in media that wear similar clothing to that. How do they move in it? And are there trends in their personalities for the characters that wear the same type of clothing? You can actually learn a lot about a person by the clothing that they wear or what they feel comfortable in. From this, you'll hopefully be able to glean some pretty basic information that you can then work off of about how the character dresses, some of their potential mannerisms, and how it all connects to their personality. The second thing I like to do is create a music playlist. I love cultivating music for playlists for characters, D&D or otherwise. I often use them when I'm getting ready for an event, putting on makeup, or if I'm just trying to settle into the character before the game. I find it very, very useful because you're pretty much creating a soundtrack. You're creating mood music to settle into your own character. So I generally start by searching an aesthetic or theme, pretty much like you did your Pinterest board, and listening through already curated playlists. You can definitely listen to the lyrics of the songs and choose songs based on that, based on like what your character is currently going through, or something that's happened in their past where that song pretty much tells the story of your character. But don't feel restricted to that. One thing I like to do is I'll listen to tempos, I'll listen for rhythms, and I'll listen for instrumentals that just feel right, that make me feel connected to the character. One of the songs I have on Cass's playlist is Achilles Come Down by Gang of Youths. And I love that song, but I don't have it on there for any of the lyrics. I actually have it on there because of the natural repetitive waltz tempo that it has. And yes, I do naturally simp for waltzes, but the reason I put it on there specifically for Cass is because it makes me think of a steam train. The way the wheels are moving never ending, tirelessly in a circle, very similar to how Cass is constantly in motion. She is constantly working, she is constantly moving from task to task without ever taking a break. Now, when I make these playlists, I will keep searching for songs until they're at least 30 minutes long. Don't feel restricted but to 30 minutes at all. It's just what I like to do, but I find that for myself, a 30-minute playlist is, even on a bad day, the amount it will take for me to listening to the songs to really settle or melt away into that character. If you want to do a little less, I would recommend it at least being 20 minutes or 4 to 5 songs for a playlist to really be effective for you. Generally also have one song on the playlist that is pretty much the anthem for the character, and I do that just in case I don't have enough time to listen to the full playlist. So if I need a quick refocusing, I can listen to that one song and be immediately thrown back in. Lastly, don't be afraid to make a story in your playlist. I generally like to make mine with an intro, a bunch of songs with themes or story in the middle, and then an outro. And I do this because when I'm listening to it, when we get to the natural ending of the playlist, the outro kind of fades away and the only thing that's left is the character. The last and potentially most helpful thing that I did to really connect to Cass was to create a character sheet. This is something I do for my D&D characters, but that's generally relating the character traits back to things in the backstory. I actually didn't think to do this for Cass until another participant in the Grey Manor chat posted theirs, so please, this is 100% inspired, the format is 100% inspired by the character sheet that they posted. So please do not give me the credit, but I found it very, very helpful. With Cass's character sheet, I started with the basics. Name, birth date, zodiac sign, and group affiliations. Even if you're not a prescriber to astrology, zodiac signs have a pre-written analysis of combinations of personality traits that I find very useful to character development. It's pretty much like a little personality cheat sheet. Then I moved on to a one-sentence summary of my character. I actually found this very difficult at first, but was finally able to boil it down to 3 questions to kind of synthesize this sentence. And the 3 points that I kind of figured were, what does she do? How does she do it? And what does she want? These questions kind of remind me of how I flesh out my NPCs when I DM, but that could be a whole nother video. And I'm not completely sure if I'm sold on this sentence, but I think it works. Next, we look at symbols and aesthetics for the character. And so literally you could take the search terms or the aesthetics from your Pinterest board and plug it into words on this character sheet. With Cass, I had already figured out how I wanted her to dress, which arguably took some time, but this helped me figure out what I wanted to do for her makeup as well. Now to what I think is the most important thing on this game sheet, fleshing out their expected behavior and their in-character goals. Now, this is definitely kind of geared towards LARPing. However, you can definitely use this and apply this to role-playing at a table as well. Looking at expected behavior. These are things, mannerisms, idiosyncrasies that you can expect your character to do unprompted. So for Cass, because of her try-hard and overly helpful nature, anytime anyone asks for help, she would volunteer. That's a no-brainer. She's a paramedic, so naturally her inclination will be to triage in dangerous situations. Now the one that was a little less obvious to me was the second one, fidgeting with the Spider-Man watch when overwhelmed. So on Cass's character sheet, it mentioned that Owen, Cass's deceased brother, loves Spider-Man, and I really want to find a way to work this into Cass's character design. So it made sense because of their dependent relationship, that Cass would continuously wear this memento of her brother and turn to it in adverse times. I found having these expected behaviors really useful because, even if you had no clue how your character would react in a situation, you at least had these core expectations to build off of. It's kind of like a base of operations or safe actions that you can return to. Then we have in-character goals. No matter the format of the game or written story, everything in the universe has at least a single motivation. Humanoids are complex creatures and often have multiple. There is something that they want or a role they want to fulfill in the universe. It's nature. So finding these motivations, what your character wants to do, is going to inform literally every action and interaction that you have. So, because Cass is written for me, her motivations came in a nice neat bow on a character sheet. The motivations were 1, someone needs help, find them, help them. 2, try to relax. And 3, try to talk about Owen. So, from those, I made these. If you do not have motivations, nice, clean, written for you by a skilled writer, one thing I would recommend asking yourself is, what does your character want? What do they want now? And what do they want ultimately? When thinking about these motivations, try to make sure you don't create a character that stands in the corner and doesn't need anybody and doesn't want to be talked to or doesn't want to be bothered. If that's the case, why are they there? So I'd like to challenge you just to dive a little bit deeper with that one. Try to find a way or a reason that your character wants to talk to somebody else, needs to talk to somebody else, regardless if they want to or not. Because I promise, tabletop or LARP, that it will make the experience more rewarding for you. So there you have it. These are the steps that I use to understand and connect with Cass as an independent entity. So for continued study, there's a lot of YouTubers that have done similar content that I have personally found very, very helpful as well, and I'll link them below and at the cards at the end. I'd also love to hear about strategies that you use in your own games or in your own LARPing that help you connect or create characters. Okay, give me. We're just gonna scream. Do you want to be held? You want to be in the intro? In the outro? Come here, BB. Come here, BB. Alright. Alright, come on. I love baby. Yeah, baby. Alright, so as always, thank you for watching this video. It was a lot of fun doing this one. It was more of a deep dive into my everyday and not really specifically LARP related mind. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you happen to like it, if you want me to do more of these videos, consider pressing the like button down below. And if you want to watch more of my LARPing, cosplaying, sewing, or cat journey, consider subscribing as well. And thank you so much. Alright, I hope you have a great day. Say bye. You're saying bye? Alright, goodbye. As always, welcome back to reason for this is to itch my mouth. Itch my mouth right in the middle of my sentence so I can't focus anymore. It may not seem like an issue initially. Did that in the middle of me talking. Okay. Blah. How? Now how? Now how? Now how? My apple cider is cold. That's my jingle for apple cider. Apple cider is cold. It's sad. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah. You'll probably start to see a pattern or a trend in what you're posting. Pinning. Posting pinning. Twerking. Work. Okay. Due to the oh my god. Patients came in a nice neat bow on the character sheet. A bird hit the window. That's my cat. And there she is. She's loose. Oh boy. Yep. No big yawns. We're gonna chatter out the window now while I'm recording. Did you see some birds? Okay. Oh. Yes. The answer is yes. 2. What was 2? Oh, if you want to see more of my LARPing, cosplaying, costuming, sewing, who knows journey, consider pressing the subscribe button as well, and my video stopped. I reached 400 views. My little baby channel is doing it. We're doing it. You know?